What if the man who watched your terrible date fall apart was the same one who quietly built a ramp so you could come through his front door like everyone else? Before we start this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you won't miss the next slow burn tales of healing, love, and unexpected second chances. By the time Blair Whitmore finished her eyeliner, her hands were shaking. She sat in front of the mirror in her tiny Portland apartment, shoulders squared, jaw clenched. The soft overhead light caught the faint white lines on her legs, the places where scars had faded but never really left. On the wall behind her, a framed poster from the National Gymnastics Championships hung in its old spot. A younger version of her flew across a balance beam, body turned into a blurred, perfect line. The photo had been taken half a second before everything went wrong. Tonight is not about that, she told the reflection. Tonight is just coffee. Her phone buzzed with a notification from the dating app. See you soon, the message read. A winking emoji. His photos were good smiling, easy, standing on mountain trails, holding a dog. He didn't know about the chair. It wasn't a secret. It was there in the pictures if you looked closely enough. The edge of a wheel here, a hand on a spoke there. But she hadn't typed the words "I use a wheelchair" in her bio. Every time she tried, she saw the conversations die before they started. The matches unmatch, the messages stop. She smoothed her dress over her lap, fingers lingering on the place where fabric met metal. If he leaves, she murmured, he leaves, you'll still be you. It sounded strong in her head. It felt fragile in her chest. She maneuvered her chair toward the door, grabbed her denim jacket, and headed out into the gray Portland evening. The cafe smelled like cinnamon and coffee. Warm lights spilled from hanging bulbs, pooling over wooden tables and mismatched chairs. A chalkboard menu listed seasonal drinks in swirling letters. A couple worked quietly over laptops in the corner. A group of college students argued about something in hushed tones. Blair chose a table near the middle of the room, angled her chair so that her wheels were partly hidden behind the table edge. She set her phone down, screen face up, showing the time. 6 minutes passed. She watched the door. 8 minutes. 11. He came in at 13, shaking rain from his jacket, hair damp and darkened at the edges. He scanned the room, eyes flicking from table to table. When his gaze reached hers, she lifted a hand. For a moment, his face lit up with polite recognition. Then he saw the chair. His expression froze, the friendliness draining away so fast she almost heard it. He walked over anyway. "You're Blair?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Hi, it's nice to—" "You didn't tell me," he cut in. "Tell you what?" she asked. Though she knew, he made a vague, uncomfortable gesture toward her lap, toward the wheels. "This," he said. "You, like, this." His voice wasn't loud, but in the quiet cafe it carried. Blair felt heat crawl up her neck. "I didn't hide it," she said. "My photos." "Your photos were cropped," he snapped. "This feels misleading." He shook his head, already stepping back. I can't do this," he said. "I'm not equipped for all that." He didn't say you, but the word hung there anyway. He turned and walked out, the door chiming cheerfully behind him. For a moment, Blair sat perfectly still. The sounds of the cafe rushed back in. Milk steaming, cups clinking, someone tapping at a keyboard. Nobody laughed. No one pointed, but she felt their eyes, quick glances, sympathy, pity, curiosity, the quiet slide away of attention that said, "I saw that," followed by the internal reminder, "Don't stare." Her vision blurred. She blinked hard. "You will not cry over a stranger who can't handle your chair," she told herself. "You've survived worse." Her fingers dug into the armrest until her knuckles whitened. A chair scraped nearby. "Dad," a small voice said, urgent but trying not to be rude. "That lady looks like she swallowed a storm cloud." Blair looked up. At the table one over, a little girl with wild brown curls and pink sneakers sat with a coloring book spread open. Her crayon hovered over a half-finished dragon. Across from her, a man in his 30s in a rolled-up shirt and soft gray sweater stared at his laptop, brows pulled together. He followed his daughter's gaze. His eyes landed on Blair's. They were a calm, steady blue, not flinching, not darting away, just seeing. He closed his laptop. Stay put, Rosie, he murmured, then picked up his coffee and crossed the space between their tables. Hey, he said, my daughter is staging a small rebellion. She thinks your table looks too sad. Blair blinked. I'm sorry, she said. He smiled, a little self-conscious. Her words, not mine, he added. She wanted to know if we could sit with you. I told her it was polite to ask first. The little girl was watching with wide eyes, chin propped on her hands. Blair could have said no. She could have clung to the last shreds of her pride and asked them to leave her alone. Instead, she heard herself say, sure, I don't mind company. The girl lit up. Yay, she said, hopping off her chair and dragging it over. I'm Rosie. This is my dad. He works too much. Rosie, the man warned gently. It's true, she said matter-of-factly, then turned back to Blair. What's your name? Blair, Blair said. Rosie rummaged in the pocket of her hoodie and pulled out a small sheet of shiny stickers. She peeled off a gold star and pressed it onto Blair's wrist. This is for surviving a bad person, she said. Mommy used to say people who survive bad days are stars. Blair swallowed the lump in her throat. Thank you, she said. That might be the nicest award I've ever gotten. The man set his coffee down and offered his hand. I'm Owen, he said. Sorry you had to hear all that. Some people don't come with the equipment they think they do. His gaze flicked briefly toward the door, then back to her. You didn't deserve that, he added. The words were simple, no flourish, no drama. They landed with surprising weight. Thank you, she said again. Rosie broke a cookie in half and offered Blair the larger piece. Chocolate helps, she said with authority. Blair smiled, accepting it. I'll take your professional recommendation, she said. For a little while, the three of them sat there. Rosie colored and told Blair about her favorite books. Owen listened more than he spoke, but when he did, his voice was warm, tinged with dry humor. Blair found herself talking about things she usually kept guarded, the way she'd fallen, the months in the hospital, the rehab center that had become both prison and sanctuary. There's a place here, she said at one point, tracing a pattern in the condensation on her glass. Harbor Light. They have these huge therapy pools. My physical therapist practically lived in the water with me. I used to think if I could just float long enough, I might remember how to be in my body again. Owen's head tilted slightly. Harbor Light in Northeast, he asked. Yeah, she said. You know it. His lips quirked. A little, he said. One of my companies helped fund their water wing a few years back. Your companies, she repeated. He shrugged, as if embarrassed by the scale of what he was saying. I run a startup, he said. We design sensors for mobility aids, rehab tech, that sort of thing. We try to make wheels and prosthetics and braces smarter, not just prettier. Harbor Light was one of our early partners. Blair stared at him. She hadn't put it together, hadn't matched the quiet man in the cafe with the tech articles she occasionally scrolled past. Health tech, mobility, the glossy words. You helped build that pool, she said slowly. A lot of people did, he replied. I just signed some papers and annoyed some donors until they wrote checks. Rosie yawned. Dad says helping people move is his superpower, she said. I think his real superpower is making grilled cheese without burning it. Owen laughed softly. I'm still working on the grilled cheese part, he said. Blair looked down at the tiny gold star on her skin. Maybe, she thought, it wasn't a coincidence. Maybe not everyone who walked in the door would walk out to avoid her. They started with hot chocolate. A few days after the cafe, Blair's phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. This is Owen. Hope it's okay that Rosie insisted I ask any chance you're at the cafe this Sunday. She swears hot chocolate tastes better when you're there. Blair stared at the screen. Her first instinct was to say no. Her second was to overthink the wording. In the end, she typed, I can be. Tell Rosie I trust her research. Sunday became a habit. They met at the same home, watched the weather shift from drizzle to downpour to rare, sharp sunlight. Rosie showed Blair her drawings, crooked castles, dragons with crooked wings, girls with crooked smiles. Blair brought her sketchbook sometimes. She drew quietly while Rosie colored, capturing the way the little girl's curls fell over her face, the way she chewed her lip when she concentrated. "Those are pretty," Rosie said one day, peering at a page. "Thanks," Blair said. "I draw for work. Children's books, mostly." "Like the one Mom wrote?" Rosie asked, turning to Owen. He paused. Blair had heard him mention Rosie's mother before, a past tense wrapped around soft edges. She hadn't asked. Owen shifted in his seat. "Your mom wrote a story," he said, "but it's kind of just for us right now." "Why?" Rosie demanded. "Because I'm not very brave," he said lightly. Rosie rolled her eyes in a way only a 6-year-old could. "You're brave enough to go on roofs," she said. "That's different," he replied. "Roofs don't have feelings." Later, when Rosie went to the bathroom, he pulled a worn folder from his bag and set it on the table. "You don't have to look," he said, "but you're the first illustrator I've met who feels like she might get it." Inside, the pages were covered in neat, looping handwriting. A story about a girl who used to fly across beams and bars and fields, until one day she couldn't. A story about finding new ways to move, new ways to soar. Blair's throat tightened. She stopped. "It's good," she said, "really good. Lena wrote it before she got sick," Owen said. His gaze stayed on the rim of his coffee cup. "I kept telling her we'd find someone to bring it to life. Then, time ran out." "I'm sorry," Blair said quietly. Me too," he said. She ran her fingers along the margin of one page, imagining colors, shapes, the feel of water, the arc of a wheel. A scene from Harbor Light flickered behind her eyes, her own hands gripping a foam noodle. A therapist's voice telling her, "You're not broken. You're rewritten." She closed the folder gently. "Does Rosie like it?" she asked. "She makes me read it a lot," he said, "but it doesn't have pictures, so she illustrates it in her head. I haven't been ready to hand it to anyone else." He hesitated. "If it's too much," he added, "ignore it. I didn't show you to make you feel obligated." "It's not too much," Blair said. She didn't promise anything, but that night, at home, she opened her own sketchbook and began to draw. A girl on a beam, a girl in a pool, a girl in a chair, looking straight out of the page. She didn't tell Owen. Not yet. It was Owen's idea to have them over for pizza. Rosie had been lobbying for movie night with Blair ever since Blair mentioned she liked cartoons with good music. "We can do it at our place," Owen said, "one Sunday. If you're comfortable with that, no pressure." The word comfortable made her pause. "What's your place like?" she asked. He thought. "Cluttered," he said. "Too many books. One small superhero who leaves toys in every room." She smiled. "I can handle clutter," she said. He texted her the address. The house sat on a quiet street with old trees arching over the sidewalk. It was a 2-story craftsman with blue paint and white trim, a small porch with a swing. It was also 3 steps up from the sidewalk to the door. Blair stopped at the bottom, looking up at the stairs. "Oh," Owen said behind her, as if only just seeing them. "Right. I'm sorry, I didn't think." "It's okay," she said quickly, that old, familiar heat rising. "Stairs happen. There's usually a side way." "There is," he said, "around back." But he looked at the steps like they'd personally betrayed him. Rosie, already on the porch, bounced on her toes. "Hi," she chirped. "Do you need help? I can carry your wheels." Blair laughed despite herself. "I think I've got them," she said. "Your dad can show me the secret entrance." They went around the side, along a narrow path, to a small back deck with a lower threshold. It worked. It wasn't terrible. It also felt like something, like a reminder that her world depended on the existence of secret entrances. Pizza was good. The movie was silly. Rosie fell asleep halfway through with her head on Blair's thigh, fingers still tangled in the hem of Blair's shirt. Blair tried to focus on the warmth of the little body, the sound of cartoons, the way Owen's face softened when he looked at his daughter. But the image of the front steps lingered in her mind. When Owen walked her out, she thanked him and meant it. This was Nice, she said. Yeah, he replied. Next time I'll plan better. Next time, she echoed. At home, when the apartment was dark and the city hummed beyond her window, she thought of the steps again. Of all the places she had had to ask for side doors, of all the times she'd smiled and said, "It's fine," while something inside her curled in. Owen sat on his own front steps after dropping Blair off, the wood cool under his palms. The porch light painted a yellow circle around him. The street beyond was quiet, broken only by a passing car now and then. He could still see her face when she'd stopped at the base of the stairs, the microsecond where her mouth had tightened before she smoothed it out. He'd missed things like that. Once, he'd missed Lena's tiredness, her forced smiles, the way her fingers lingered on the doorway before she left for treatments alone because he was too busy in meetings. Back then, he'd believed in later, that there was always another day to pay attention. Later had run out. He stared at the 3 steps. They were nothing. A weekend project, a piece of wood, some brackets, an expense he wouldn't notice. For Blair, they were a wall. He thought about all the products his company made sleek, clever, embedded with sensors and chips. They shipped them to clinics and hospitals and called it progress. He thought about the way Blair had laughed at Rosie's jokes but flinched at the word dishonest. For all his innovations, he hadn't thought about his own front door. He blew out a breath. "Okay," he said into the empty night. "Start at home." The next morning, Rosie watched, fascinated, as lumber was delivered. "What are you building?" she asked. "A bridge," he said. To where she asked, "To the person we keep inviting over," he replied. She grinned. "I like bridges," she said. When Blair arrived a week later, she almost didn't recognize the same house. The blue paint and white trim were the same. The swing still rocked a little in the breeze. But between the sidewalk and the front door, a smooth wooden ramp sloped gently upward, sturdy and new, still smelling faintly of resin. She stopped. Owen stood at the top and looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Hi," he said. "I, stole your secret entrance." She swallowed. "You built that?" she asked. "Well, I had help," he said. "But I held a drill and everything." Why the word came out smaller than she liked. "Because the front door is supposed to be yours too," he said simply. "I don't want you sneaking around the side like a delivery." Her vision blurred. She blinked hard. Rosie burst out behind him, nearly tripping in her excitement. "Do you like it?" she demanded. "We can roll all the way in now. I tested it with my scooter. It's fun." Blair laughed, shaky. "I love it," she said. She pushed forward, wheels humming softly over the wood, until she reached the top and crossed the threshold. The doorway was just a doorway. The ramp was just a ramp. But her chest felt like someone had cracked it open to let more air in. Inside, the house seemed warmer. Not because of the ramp, she told herself, because of what it meant. Someone had changed his space so she didn't have to shrink hers. The exhibit was called Rewritten. The gallery wasn't huge white walls, polished concrete floors, light flooding in from tall windows, but seeing her work hung there made Blair's heart stutter. Watercolors of pools, the smear of blue and white where limbs disappeared into motion. Ink drawings of hands pushing wheels, of city streets seen from a lower vantage point. A series of images showing a girl falling, then floating, then rolling forward. People milled around, glasses of wine in hand, murmuring. Blair sat near the back wall, out of the main flow, her chair angled so she could watch without being watched too much. She wore a simple black dress, her hair pinned up, a small gold star sticker, faded at the edges now, still clung to the inside of her wrist. Owen and Rosie arrived early. Rosie ran from piece to piece, pointing. "That's like you, in the pool," she told Blair. "And that's like the book." "The book?" someone nearby asked. "My mom's book," Rosie said proudly. "Blair is drawing it." Blair shot Owen a quick look. He smiled. "She's not great at secrets," he said under his breath. It was true, but Blair didn't mind. Not about this. Later, while she was talking to a woman from a local magazine, Blair drifted near the refreshment table. There, near a cluster of suits she recognized as Owen's colleagues, two women stood with their heads close together, That's her, one said, tilting her chin toward Blair. The artist? Yeah, the other replied. And apparently the new girlfriend. The first woman sipped her wine. He always was a bleeding heart, she said. Wife dies. He throws himself into disability tech. Finds himself a tragic muse. Classic redemption arc. The second woman chuckled. Better than buying a sports car, I guess, she said. But still, there's something a little convenient about it. He gets a pretty girl with the story. Gets to be the hero who sees past the chair. She gets a sponsor. Everybody wins. Blair's stomach twisted. She backed away before she heard more. Of course. Of course someone would see it that way. She'd told herself she was more than a project, more than a symbol. Maybe she'd been lying. The room felt too bright, too loud. She slipped out a side door onto a small balcony overlooking the street. The air was cooler outside. The noise muted. Cars slid past below. A bus hissed at the curb. She wrapped her arms around herself. Am I someone you love? She thought bitterly. Or just the proof that you're still a good man after she died? The door creaked. Blair Owen's voice. She didn't turn. I'm fine, she said. They'd agreed not to say that if it wasn't true, but the word came out anyway, brittle and sharp. He stepped up beside her, resting his hands lightly on the railing. The last time you said that, he said, you'd just been called dishonest by a man who ran away from a chair. Forgive me if I don't believe you now either. She exhaled, fogging the air. I heard your friends, she said, the ones by the wine, talking about your redemption arc. He closed his eyes for a moment. Of course you did, he muttered. Am I that, she asked. A project. A way for you to feel like you're still a good person after all the things you couldn't fix. He turned to her, expression raw. No, he said. You're not. Then what am I, she demanded. You, he said, almost helplessly. You're the woman who told my daughter that her feelings about her mom are too big to fit in one story. You're the artist who turned a pool I funded on a spreadsheet into something that looks like hope. You're the first person I've wanted to argue with at 2 in the morning instead of opening my inbox. That sounds poetic, she said. It still doesn't answer the question. Silence stretched. Her fingers dug into the railing. I can't be evidence, she said quietly. Evidence you healed. Evidence you're still good. I spent years being a poster child for overcoming adversity while people clapped and then built more stairs. I'm tired. He flinched. He started. I know you didn't mean it that way. She cut in. That's the worst part. I know you're trying. But when people look at us, they see a story. They don't see me. She blew out a breath. I got an email, she added, from a program in Santa Fe. Artist residency, different city, mostly work, less being watched. He went very still. When he asked, 3 months, she said, I haven't decided yet. You have, he said quietly. You're packing in your head. She blinked hard. He reached for her hand, then let it fall before he touched her. I don't want you to go, he said, but I don't want you to stay for the wrong reasons either. If you think I'm using you, I don't know what I think, she said. I just know how it felt when they said broken girl and project. It felt familiar. He nodded, jaw tight. Then figure it out, he said. And when you do, call me. Or don't. I'll still read the book to Rosie. I'll still walk up that ramp every day and remember why I built it. He stepped back. Congratulations on the exhibit, he said softly. It's beautiful. Then he went inside, leaving her alone with the city and the ache in her chest. The apartment looked smaller with boxes lining the walls. Blair labeled them in neat black marker. Kitchen, books, art supplies. There was a box she didn't label, filled with the things she wasn't sure she wanted to take: old medals, taped up photos, a flyer from a competition where she'd been touted as the next big thing. She sat in the middle of the room, wheels locked, watching dust motes dance in a shaft of light. Silence hummed around her. If she stayed, she'd have to keep facing the looks, the comments, The possibility that every kindness had a shadow of guilt behind it. If she left, she'd be alone again, in a new city, with her work, her chair, and a pile of fears that never quite shut up. She thought of the gym, the moment her foot had slipped, the crack of her landing. She thought of harbor light, the chill of the pool, the therapist's hands steadying her shoulders. She thought of Rosie's tiny palm pressing a sticker onto her skin, declaring her a star. Tears burned behind her eyes. She swiped them away. A knock sounded at the door. She wasn't expecting anyone. Her phone sat silent on the counter. She hadn't answered Owen's last message. A simple, "How are you holding up?" that had sat there for days. She rolled over and opened the door. No one stood in the hallway. Just a small wooden box sat on the doormat, her name carved into the lid in looping script. Blair. She picked it up, heart beating a little too fast, and brought it inside. The box was heavier than it looked. Inside, carefully packed, was a stack of thin, glossy books. Her breath caught. On the covers, a little girl in a red hoodie sat in a wheelchair on a hill, hair blowing in the wind, arms outstretched as if she were flying. A stylized city skyline rose behind her, clouds curled overhead, outlined in gold. The title floated above her in soft, bold letters. Inside, the pages were filled with paintings. Her paintings. The lines and colors she'd poured into her sketchbook late at night now lived in print. The girl fell and flew in new ways. She discovered water, wheels, ramps. She learned to balance differently. On the title page, the author line read, "Story by Lena Callahan, illustrations by Blair Whitmore." Her vision blurred. Tucked between the pages of the top copy was a note written in uneven, round letters. "This is my favorite. Love, Rosie." Below it, in Owen's handwriting, "I showed your sketches to a friend at a small press. I didn't ask for a contract. I didn't ask for money. I asked if these pages made him feel less alone. He said yes. If you want this to go further, it's yours. All of it. Rights, decisions, control. If you want it to stay in this box, it will. I didn't do this to fix you. I did it because I've spent years telling myself the world would be kinder if it saw kids like Rosie and kids like you on the page. And I realized I was still waiting for someone to make that happen. You are someone, whether you stay in Portland or go to Santa Fe or move to the moon. I will still read this book to my daughter and tell her the pictures were drawn by a woman who refused to disappear. You don't owe me anything. You don't have to call, but if you do, I'll pick up." Owen. Blair covered her mouth with her hand. The room swayed. He hadn't framed himself as a savior. He'd framed her as an artist. A voice, small and stubborn, spoke up inside her. "You're allowed to let people lift you without assuming they're carrying you to a pedestal you didn't ask for." She picked up her phone. Her fingers hovered for a second. Then she hit call. He answered on the second ring. Blair. His voice sounded like he'd been holding his breath for days. "You didn't put your name on the cover," she said. He let out a short, shaky laugh. "Hello to you too," he replied. "And yeah, it's Lena's story and your art. I'm just the guy who knows where the coffee is." She swallowed. "You could have made it about you," she said. "You could have put your logo on the back, talked about how your company supports disabled artists." Well, you didn't. "I thought the world could survive one less man turning women's work into his brand," he said dryly. Silence stretched, but it was softer than before. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of me?" he asked. "Of being an object," she said. "In your redemption story. In anyone's." "I know," he said. "I heard what they said at the exhibit. I wanted to smash their glasses. Didn't seem very redemptive." She smiled despite herself. "I don't want to be proof," she said, "that you're kind, that you healed. I don't want to be a before and after photo." "You're not," he said. "You're the middle of a story that doesn't have neat borders." She exhaled. "I'm more scared," she said slowly, "of living like every good thing that happens to me is a trick, of assuming every person who stays is lying." "That sounds lonely," he said. "It is," she said. He was quiet for a moment. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Not what you think you should want. Not what a grant committee would want to hear. You." She closed her eyes. I want to go to Santa Fe, she said, for a bit, to paint, to prove to myself that my work is mine, even when you and Rosie aren't in the room. Okay, he said. I also want, she hesitated. I want to come back to something, to you, to her, to us, if that's still on the table. It's not a table, he said softly. It's a ramp. You don't fall off it that easily. She laughed, a wet hiccup. If we do this, she said, it has to be honest. You can miss Lena. You can have bad days. I can have days when I hate my body and everything hurts. You're not fixing me. You're walking beside me. Deal, he said. For what it's worth, you're the first person I've let read her story without feeling like I was betraying her. If this is a redemption arc, it's mine, not yours. She wiped her eyes. When I get back, she said, we'll sit with Rosie and read the book. On the floor, like in the books. He smiled into the phone. We already do, he said. We were just waiting for the illustrator to join us. The launch party smelled like paper and frosting. The same gallery that had hosted Rewritten now had tables stacked with bright copies of the book. Kids ran between their parents' legs, clutching balloons. A corner held a small reading nook with cushions on the floor. On the walls hung Blair's original illustrations, framed and lit. The girl in the chair smiled down at the crowd from every angle. Blair sat near the front, almost dizzy with the sound of page edges and small voices. She'd come back from Santa Fe with sun in her hair and new lines in her sketchbooks. The time away had been good, hard, necessary. She'd painted desert skies and wheel tracks in sand. She'd missed the rain and the ramp and the little voice that asked too many questions. She'd missed Owen's laugh. Now he stood by the refreshments table, talking with the publisher. Rosie sat cross-legged at Blair's feet, flipping through a copy of the book even though she already knew every page. When it was time for speeches, the publisher said something about representation and courage. Owen said something brief and heartfelt about Lena, about how she'd believed every kid deserved a story that held their shape. Then it was Blair's turn. She rolled up to the small mic stand. It had been adjusted to her height. She appreciated that more than any of the kind words printed on the posters. Hi, she said. Her voice echoed a little. I used to think my life would be measured in routines and repetitions, she said. In how many times I could land the same move without falling. A few people chuckled softly, not sure if they were allowed. I fell, she said, in a way that didn't stop when I hit the mat. I thought that was the end of my story. She looked up at the paintings. It wasn't, she said, it was just a rewrite. She glanced down at Rosie, who beamed up at her, gold star sticker on her own wrist now. This book started as a story from someone I never met, she continued. It was finished by a girl who thought her life ended on a gym mat and held together by a little reader who believed we could all belong on the same page. She smiled. I hope, she said, that some kid out there who can't see themselves in the usual stories will pick this up and think, oh, there I am. She rolled back as the room applauded. As the noise faded, a small hand shot up in the front row. Rosie, of course. Yes, Rosie, Blair asked, amused. Can I ask something, Rosie said, looking around as if seeking permission from the adults. Sure, Blair said. In the book, Rosie said, Bennett, they're not just in the pictures together. They live together. They're a family. Can we be a family now? Like in the books where they sit on the floor and read and fall asleep on each other. The room went very quiet. A few people smiled. A couple of strangers wiped at their eyes. Blair's breath caught. She looked at Owen. He didn't look surprised or embarrassed, just open, waiting. This is your call too, he said softly. If you want it. Blair's heart hammered. Yes, she said. Her voice didn't shake. But there will be bad days, she added, for Rosie and for herself and for him. Days I'm angry at my body. Days your dad misses your mom so much he can't breathe right. Days when it all feels heavy. Rosie considered this. Do we still sit on the floor on those days, she asked. Owen answered this time. Especially on those days, he said. Rosie grinned. Then I want that, she said. I want floor days with both of you. Laughter rippled through the room, mingled with applause. Blair felt something settle in her chest, not a perfect, tidy joy, but a steady warmth. Yes. That night, the house on the quiet street glowed from within. The ramp caught a line of lamplight, its surface worn slightly now by weeks of wheels and small feet and scooter wheels. Inside, the living room floor was scattered with cushions and blankets. The couch sat empty. Blair rested against a pile of pillows. Chair parked nearby, legs covered with a soft throw. Rosie sprawled half across her lap, book open over both their knees. Owen leaned against the base of the couch, shoulder brushing Blair's. And when the girl realized she might never fly the way she used to, Blair read aloud. She looked down and saw tracks in the ground behind her. A new kind of path, one she'd made herself. Rosie traced the picture with a finger. That's you, she said sleepily. And Mom. And me. Maybe, Blair said. Definitely, Owen murmured. Rosie yawned, eyes drooping. Within minutes, her breathing evened out. Blair closed the book gently. For a moment, no one spoke. The house hummed around them, fridge, heater, the faint patter of rain starting up outside. Blair looked toward the window. In the glass, she could see the faint reflection of the room the three of them tangled together. The book in her hand, the wheelchair parked not in a corner, but right in the middle of the scene. Part of the furniture, part of the story. You okay, Owen asked quietly. She thought about the girl on the beam, the woman in the pool, the artist in the gallery, the person on this floor now, holding a book and a child and the hand of a man who'd built a ramp instead of a pedestal. I didn't get my legs back, she said. He squeezed her fingers, waiting. I got something else, she said, a different kind of balance. He smiled. That's one I can live with, he replied. Outside, the rain fell steady and soft. Inside, under the lamplight, three people breathed in time with a story they had written together, not perfectly, not neatly, but honestly. And for Blair Whitmore, that was finally enough.